To give you the best possible outcome in any scenario, you really want to go down and nail the perfect roadmap to success. And what that'll entail is everything around the world of consultation. So a really good, quick, easy guideline in terms of types of questions to ask in a consultation is where it becomes all about the client. There's a number of factors that we need to have a look at when we do a consultation, because some of the things that we don't always think about may very well play a key role with regards to what it is we're going to do on that client. If you have a look at things like lifestyle, for example, lifestyle is a huge player in terms of what we can do on that client's hair. They may be a swimmer. If they're a swimmer and they're spending a lot of time outdoors, they're spending a lot of time in swimming pools, we may need to adjust our formulations accordingly based on their lifestyle. They could very well be a barrister during the day. They're stuck in court in a very corporate environment. We may need to adjust what it is that we do on that client's hair, not just to facilitate what it is that they do from a career perspective, but also incorporate what they do on a lifestyle side of things. So asking those kinds of questions for us are really, really key. Some of the other things that you really want to make sure you check is history. And what I mean by history is ask your client the question, what have you done to your hair previously? They will tell you. By looking at the hair, you'll be able to see whether what's coming out of their mouth and visually what you see is congruent. If it is not, that is where you can do a strand test. Strand tests will literally give you the ability to showcase in a very short period of time what is lying underneath all of that hair. She may have wanted to go super blonde a year ago, got tired of it and then went dark. Underneath that dark hair, the blonde is still sitting there, and that'll react very, very differently. Strand tests will show us something like that very, very quickly. Other important things that we have a look at are things like density. Density and texture for us are super, super key, because these two will literally affect the formula that you choose to use. Do you know what the difference is between density and texture? What do you imagine those two to be?
Texture and how the hair feels.
Yep.
If it's weak or if it's strong.
That's elasticity.
Okay.
Great point. I'm going to pop that one up here as well for us, because we can discuss that, because that will give us an indication in terms of how far we can push the hair.
So texture would be curly or straight.
Texture is, if you imagine taking one piece of hair off your head and rolling it between your fingers, if you cannot feel it between your fingers, the texture of that hair is fine. You may have a lot of it, which is what density is.
Okay.
So density is the amount of hair you have in 1 square inch.
Yeah.
Texture is fine, medium, or coarse. Fine hair you'll generally find will lighten a lot quicker, where coarse hair may be a little bit more resistant. So that'll be an alteration in terms of what we need to do from a formulation perspective to achieve the desired result. Density, how much hair is there on the head, that'll affect how much color, saturation, all of those factors that we need to use.
And in terms of texture, with using the volumes that you have, you would go higher if it was coarse hair.
Coarse hair, generally on darker levels, you want to use something a little stronger, because it's going to be a little harder to move. Where fine textured hair, you may even want to pull it back a little bit, because it's going to lift. And understanding that gives you the perfect opportunity in terms of your formulation. So again, you can deliver exactly what it is that your client is looking for. On elasticity that you mentioned was strength. And what you'll find is when you tie that back in with a strand test, once you've done your strand test, and generally we'd use a powder lightener with a high volume to do your strand test, what it's going to do is reveal the history underneath the hair, but it's also going to show you any damaged sites within that hair. I would personally use a very high volume, so either a 30 or a 40 volume with a lightener, pop it in a foil in 3 key strategic areas on the head. You want to do 1 on each side, and then potentially 1 at the back as well, because what that's going to overcome is any different fashion tones, color placements, or anything that that client may have previously had. It'll reveal for us what's happened in certain areas of the head. Once you've performed your strand test and you've wiped it off after about 10 minutes, grab the hair at the end and pull it down, give it some tension. Hold it for a couple of seconds, and if you let it go, if it bounces up and goes into something that looks a bit like a bobby pin, where that little zigzag stops, from there to the ends, that hair is now compromised. And you know in that area you need to go into something a little more gentle. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it just gives us that security blanket in terms of formulating correctly for certain conditions based on what the history is in that client's hair. Other key things that we have a look at when we do color consultations is things like skin tone and eye color. Eye color and skin tone are really, really important for us, because what that's going to do for us is give us that ability to decide, is that client going to be a warm tone or a cool tone? And remember, we identified that in the previous segment, where your warm tones are your reds, your yellows, your oranges, or your cooler tones being more ashy tones in the blues, the violets, and potentially even the greens. Once we've gone through and had a really in-depth conversation with our guest in the chair and uncovered what the history is in their hair, we've ascertained what their density is, their texture, their elasticity, we've had a look at their skin tone and their eye color, the best confirmation that we as colorists can get from what we've seen and they've told us is for them to give us a visual reference. Now, visual references come in many forms. There's Pinterest pages that clients are creating themselves nowadays. There's Instagram, there's Facebooks, there's friends' pictures that they bring. The key thing for us when you do something like that is to ask them for more than one picture. If they only give you one picture, you are, as a colorist, committing yourself to achieving that exact color in the picture. For me, I always ask my clients for at least 3 pictures, because what that does is gives me a variance in terms of what to work with, and from the 3 pictures you can basically ascertain what it is that they're looking for. Are they looking for depth on the root, lightness into the ends? Are they looking for block bold color? Are they looking for face framing? What is it that they're looking for? By giving 3 pictures, you'll be able to see a common thread throughout it, not just tying yourself into one picture. One of the biggest questions that we always get asked is, do I show my client the color chart? Is that something you were thinking about?
Yes, I was actually.
If we go ahead and we show our client a color chart, when we have a look at the world of color, what we have in the client's hair and what we choose to use will result in the final color that we achieve. So by showing your client a color swatch, they're expecting that exact color to come through. Now, if we remember when we had a look at our color chart, if they've got any yellow or gold in their hair and they're showing us an ashy tone, and you show them a swatch that is a 10 level ash, and you use that, ash is blue, remember? And blue and yellow will always make
Green.
We are not going to be able to use the swatch that we've shown them to achieve the result that they desire. We'll need to use something different. So the color chart for us is a professional tool to help us formulate accordingly. Visual references are the best thing that you can use from your client's perspective to show you what it is that they're looking to achieve from their color result.